So anyone recording guitars themselves and who is looking to get them to be wider, deeper, a bit more vivid maybe, to create more of a sense of space and impact in their tracks, bring life to the guitars and bring more vividness and energy. I'm a guitar player, and I have also, I came up listening to a lot of guitar music in the 90s. That's American stuff from like Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Metallica, all the rock stuff, Radiohead, Blur. And then, the more weird stuff like Portishead, or the less guitar focused music that has guitar in it, like Talking Heads. And yeah, basically the role that guitar plays in lots of different types of music is something that I've kind of spent a lot of time working on and focusing on and sort of studying, really. And so when I'm working on a track with guitars, well, with any instrument, I'm looking to make it feel right for the song, but also rich and thick and vivid, rather than like a bit weak and not got a lot of character. I love character. I love things that are jumping out of the speakers, basically. Perhaps you're listening back to your recordings you've made and you just think they're just not there. They don't sound like the records I'm listening to. Then hopefully this video will help. This is an indie rock song that I'm working on for Damon Brock. It's got bass. It's got bass, guitar, full drum kit with some percussion layers. It's got acoustic guitar underpinning it, so the whole way through this track you've got double tracked. I've actually got the track spacer against the vocal on that, so you can hear the ducking from track spacer when the vocal is on. It's creating a little bit of a weird effect when it's soloed. Anyway, acoustic guitar, and then about 4 or 5 different electric guitars that I've done, and that's what I'm going to look at. You can hear it's wide and rich, and that's so. First off, I'm going to look at the rhythm guitars that we've got that are panned like this. Where's the camera? They're panned like left, right, and the strategy really is to keep the vocal in the middle and never have too many things that are in the same stereo position as the vocal. So even if just a little bit, they're out of the way of the vocal, and that creates space for that vocal. These were recorded on my Fender Mustang. I'm using the amazing and very versatile Stark guitar amp plugin by Clevgrand. It's really good. It's so cool. It's got so much control, and I'm using it. British Guitar B1. Got it on the boost, and then I've got a tremolo. All of these guitars are being sent to a room reverb, so it blends them together, makes it sound like it's in a room. Second rhythm guitar. And I've used the Stark and that, but I've bounced that out. On the pedal board, I'm using an echo and a tremolo. And slapback delay, which just adds a bit more tonal depth and a bit more variation. So they're the 2 guitars that are sort of, I would class as the rhythm guitars that are sort of quite persistent through the song, and they're panned like that. So together. They're balanced, and they do sound like they're fairly central in the middle, but they're not. They're just given that space. And the extra guitars that come in, and this is that technique I want to show you. Again, using the Stark guitar amp modeler, different settings. I've put a wide chorus on this one, and it's a wide sound. And the key thing here is using stereo panning. So yeah, with the stereo panning, if you've got a stereo signal, you've got information left and right. If you just take that panel and pan it, you're losing all of one side. If you do the stereo pan setting, when you pan it, you pan all of the stereo left and right over to one side, so you don't lose any signal. So that's the first bit of the trick, is to use stereo pan. That's basically almost all coming out of the right hand side channel, but that kind of, to make that feel like it's not too dry in one side, I'm then sending that to a reverb, a spring reverb, which is panned to the other side. There it is. I might actually take some low end off that. And then together. So what that does is it basically stops that guitar from feeling all isolated out on its own on the right and feeling unbalanced. You then balance it with a touch of spring reverb. So these are the two guitars that come in on the pre-chorus. So one of those guitars is on the right, one of the guitars is on the left, and then I've actually used the same spring reverb technique in reverse. So the one that's panned to the left is being sent to a spring reverb that's hard panned to the right. So guitar signal on the left, reverb on the right. And that's in this one, it sounds like this. If I mute the reverb, it's like that. So the technique really is about balance, and the guitars are panned, so you are hearing them in their left, right speakers, but rather than it just being totally dry in those speakers, you've then got a little bit of the signal on the flip side, and that just creates this more of a big sound, more of a deep sound, and that's what I'm going for. This technique works great if you're recording just one guitar and you want to have space. If you don't want the guitar to be right in the middle, and I talk about that because it can feel too close, and if you've got a vocal in the middle, you can feel too busy and too cluttered. You might want to move the guitar to the left and have a reverb to the right. And so altogether, these 4 guitars on that section put the bass in. And the other thing about these sounds that is helping it have depth and sonic richness is the fact that I'm using a chorus effect on one channel with a bit of reverb and a little bit of a tremolo. Tremolo adds texture, slight volume change. This is the warm guitar part. It's a really chunky sound. I like its quite sort of overloaded feel. It's a bit unconventional, and I wanted that sense of something being like a bit gnarly, but also quite sweet. Without those effects, let's have a listen to it without those effects. It's even a bit out of tune. So that wobble is real kind of psychedelic kind of sound to it, and this lovely melodic clean chorus part on the left. And it really lifts that part of the song, the high guitar, the 2 mid guitars, chord guitars, and then the warbly one. All of those are blending together but all complementing each other. And part of what I love to do as a producer and a musician and an arranger is to come up with these parts so that everything kind of feels big and wide and rich and interesting and colourful. And the last section of the song has this extra sort of country style tremolo guitar, wobble guitar that comes in. So when you play 4 guitars together, they're not all over the top of each other and covering each other up and masking each other. You can really hear each thing, Add the acoustics. So yeah, the key takeaways really on this one is panning, generous panning. One cool thing that is always good to think about is a sound coming out of one speaker can often be more powerful than coming out of 2. Because if you've got one speaker, it's coming from one place, one space and time. It's coming from one sonic place, as one speaker there, so it's very defined. Well, as soon as you put something in 2 speakers, it's now in the stereo field somewhere. It's existing in space. And that's brilliant. That's amazing for vocals. That's amazing for space and reverbs and all that stuff. But if you want contrast in your mix and you want things to feel like they're vivid, try hard panning them and go all the way. So it's just coming out of one speaker. Like, it's great for percussion, great for backing vocals or double tracking backing vocals. Put one in the left, one in the right. And then adding on top of that, the reverb, the spring reverb pan thing. That's a lovely little trick to add depth to that technique. If you're listening on headphones especially, it can be quite jarring if a sound's just coming out of one ear. So just subtly balancing it with a reverb on the other ear just gives that, the brain goes, ah, thank you. This is a song called Summer Days by Damon Brock. I've had the vocal muted because I'm focusing on the guitars, but yeah, we're just about to finish the mixing and then get that one released, so keep an eye out for it.